Okay, so continuing on, this is a lecture for my meat lab people. We have a whole ham here, and the ham's special to us because we can do lots of curing with it. I did remove the H-bone. You saw me do that in the meat analysis. Basically just go along the inside of the H-bone, start pulling it out, and work underneath it until it falls off. The next thing we're going to do is remove the shank, which is this lower portion here. And you can see the bone is right there. We're going to follow the bone up. You can feel it right underneath the hide until you get to the kneecap. And in the kneecap, you're going to find a little depression down in here. So what we're doing is feeling right in here for what would be this part of your kneecap, right underneath the bottom of it. So I'm feeling for a little depression. Once I find it, I put my finger on it, grab a boning knife, and then I'm going to stab it right into that section. And then I'm going to rock the knife back and forth, pull it out, turn it around, put it back in, and get the other side until I can put my finger in there and feel I'm in the joint. Once I'm in the joint, then I have to watch out for cutting into large pieces of meat like this bottom round, or on this side, the top round. And you can see a natural seam down here at the bottom of the top round, and that's kind of where I want to be cutting. I'm going to go into the joint. It's got a little bump at the top. Once I get over the top of that, I'm going to turn down and go down around this top round. So going down here, I should have a good inch of skin left at the bottom of the top round, and stop. Then I'm going to roll it over. Same kind of cut here. I have to feel for the top of the bone. It kind of goes up and over, and it's same cut coming down until I meet the cut that I made with the top round portion. So here I'm going to connect up, and I have just basically come all the way around this shank. So now I go into the joint, open up the joint here, and take the bone out. So this is a pork shank. We have skin all the way around it. We're going to cure this one and put it into a brine and then smoke it. I also have the pig's feet left here. This is the bottom of the pig's foot. This is its hock. So this is from the fresh ham. It's a slightly larger pig foot than from the picnic. So picnic's a little smaller. And then we have the hocks, the actual hocks. This is a shank. So shank, hocks, feet. Okay, and those will all go into a brine, and we'll smoke those. So once I've got that done, then I'm going to flip this leg over and take the rind off. So I want to find the narrowest spot on the rind. I'm going to insert a boning knife just underneath the skin. Careful coming out here. You don't want to poke yourself. And we open the skin up. Then we're going to remove the skin from the entire leg. So we do that by pulling, pull hard, stretch that connective tissue, use the boning knife to separate. Here again, pulling. We don't want to cut into the lean meat. We're just going to stay right between the meat and the skin itself. Now I find that this is a perfect piece for making chicharron, even though it's not the chichas, which are down on the teats. So I use this oftentimes in class to produce chicharron. Okay, so I'm going to take this down a little bit further, aiming toward the skin. Stay away from the lean meat. We're going to work both sides down as far as we can until we're basically at the cutting board. And then we'll flip it. and work on this side. So stay away from the lean, cutting connective tissue and fat. That's where it's at. So nice long strokes here. Just keep pulling. I'll work on this side a little bit. I don't want to remove all of the fat, but the majority of it is fine. Okay, it helps to really get a nice clean edge here, so don't be afraid to steal the knife. Notice how I have my finger on the back edge of the knife. Really helps release pressure, so I'm not pushing too hard. I'm going nice and easy on this. There's a little bit of meat right here over the knuckle, so if I end up taking a tiny bit, you can see it right here with the skin. Don't worry about it. So now I'm coming out the very edge here. And here's the skin. So this I could use for making chicharron. This makes really good chicharron. And the only thing I really need to do to it to start is put it into water and start to cook it. I boil it, simmering actually, for about 45 minutes. This one here we'll save for later. So I'll just set it in the stock pot for now. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and finish boning this out. Remember, I have the H-bone already removed. So here's the femur, ball of the femur. I'm going to look for the top round, which is on the inside round. This is knuckle over here. And everything on the bottom is all bottom round. So I'm going to look for these seams. If I can't see them very good, I can pull up the connective tissue and I can trim some of this connective tissue off. So I'm just doing this so you can see a little better. And then we have the seam that's closest to the femur being here is seam number 1. And then we're going to go down to the second seam, and that's where we're going to start boning out this top round. So we do this just like we did with veal. It's exactly the same. We look for the second seam. We're going to open it gently. Don't go too quickly. And then I'm going to pull in that seam with my finger, looking for the connective tissue. Try not to get into the knuckle down below. This seam's pretty much going to go straight in, not down. And then it's going to open up down in here a little bit. There's still a little bit of tenderloin right there. I'm not going to worry about it. I'll just get underneath it. We'll take care of that later. And then I'm pulling the connective tissue here in this seam, and I'm headed towards the femur. When I get to the bone, then I want to go along the bone, open it up a little bit on my side. I'll come down here. The seam gets a little tight in here, so try to follow it carefully. I'm on the inside of the femur over on here. So if you can see the bone structure right in there, I'm loosening the meat on the inside there of that. As I get down to the shank down in here, I want to trim off this tissue over the top, but don't go too deep around the shank meat itself. Okay, so that's what I've done so far. Opened everything up. This is knuckle. This is top round. So I'm going to finish loosening up the top round on the inside of the femur. Try to work all the way to the end of the bone. And down below this lean meat in here, you're going to see a seam down at the bottom. And I'm looking for the seam between the top round and the bottom round. So as I get down below the bone here, I should start to see a bit of fat and connective tissue right here. That's the seam I want. I don't want to go any deeper than that. And when I'm coming around the edge of this knee, I want to start to look for strap muscles here. See all of these strappy muscles? I want to stay on top of those because that is part of my bottom round. Top round here. Keep pulling it. Top round's going to come out. This is the heel, those strappy muscles right here. That's the heel. And we're going to get everything on top of the heel to come with us. So I just keep pushing the top round to the side here. Watch for the eye of the round. This is the eye right in here. So we want to be over the top of that. Opening up the seam along this top round here. Come out the cover. And you have your top round. Okay, this is really good for doing all kinds of stuff, especially making cutlets, scallopinis. This is a bit of covering, so we have a little layer of meat over the top. We typically take that off. We can also cut this into two and make roasts out of it. Straight down the middle, we have two small roasts off to either side, or we can roll it and make one large roast like that. Top round. Second thing we're going to do is take off this knuckle, and here's all the knuckle right in here. We're going to follow the femur with the tip of the knife, scraping the meat off the edge of the bone. Here you're going to cut lean meat. You can't get the knuckle off without scraping meat off the bone. So use the tip of the knife, do a little bit at a time. As I get down to the end, there's going to be a kneecap in here, right there. So stay on the inside of the kneecap. Go ahead and release it from the bone structure. Then we'll continue removing knuckle underneath that femur. So I'm not quite done yet. I got to go in, make another cut, and I'm looking for the seam between the knuckle and the bottom round. Sometimes I can find it by going around the top of the femur, loosening the bone here. I can also put the knife underneath and stay close to the bone. Take that off. We have this heel that's attached, so we're going to cut the heel away from the bone, and we're going to take the bone all the way out here. Everything comes out except the kneecap. And then you can see, this is knuckle here. There's a little jelly in there. And then what I want to do is put my fingers in here and look for the seam between the knuckle and the bottom round. And that's going to be it right here. Put my fingers right down there. Don't go straight down because this slopes at an angle. So I want to make sure I'm not cutting through that bottom round. I'm doing that kind of backwards so you can see it. And then the top of this knuckle comes in all the way up here. There's a bit of connective tissue. And then you have the pork knuckle. Get this kneecap out by going around it, starting from the top. Kind of a horseshoe cut. Just like that. Cut it out. That goes into the bones, which I have roasting in the oven, conveniently. Okay, so here's your knuckle, pork knuckle. We can make a ham out of this. You can also cut it into stew meat. We can make, this is really good for leaner cuts of meat. Maybe I want to make sweet and sour pork. So that might be really good for that. Top round and knuckle so far. So here's the bottom round. There's a bunch of meat hanging over one end. This here is your heel. This here is the eye. This here is the rump, or bottom round, outside round. This stuff up here, we're going to take it off by pushing on it and just rolling it right off the bottom of the bottom round. This is all sirloin. This is the end of the loin of pork. We cut a little steak from there. You still might be able to recognize it from right there. We cut one piece from the loin that looked very much like this. This is good also for stewing. So sirloin is great. You can also put it into sausages. Okay, it's fairly lean, so you might need a little fat in there. So this is now the three-way round, 3 parts. We can go ahead and trim out the heel here, the eye here, and the rump. So this one's fairly easy. There's a big packet or bunch of fat right in the middle of these 3 muscles. So easy to identify the muscles by going down and loosening up the fat. Pull on this fat, get everything out. There's going to be a gland embedded in that sack of fat in there. Depending on how old the animal is, the gland may be large or not. And this is a smaller, younger animal, so probably not much of a gland in there. A little bit, might be somewhere in there. So we put that into the garbage, don't grind it up. And we'll finish taking the heel off. Pull, leave the bottom round where it belongs. When you get out to the edge here, then we'll cut off the heel. Remember, the heel is going to have the gooseneck right in the middle. So the gooseneck is very tough meat. It is right there, right down the very center. We can pull that out. If we're going to use this for grinding, we would want to take the tougher meat out of the middle. If we're going to make some consomme, this gooseneck would be great for grinding in the consomme with any shank meat or any tougher meat that we run into. That bone's going in the oven too. Okay, then we have the outside or rump. We could split this into 2, make 2 even-sized roasts out of it, or we could take the eye muscle out and trim it down even more. Here's the eye. The eye is a really good muscle to try to work on because this seam right here gets very difficult to find. It's kind of disappears on you a little bit. So you have to go slow, work it nice and easy. This is what I consider a tight seam. Use your fingers, see where the seam is headed. And then when you get to the cover on the outside, go ahead and separate it out. Here's where it gets the tightest, up here at the top. So look for the connective tissue, stay in there. And then there's a bit of a seam right here. We'll just follow that to separate this from the rump. So this is the eye of the round. Even though this is considered a leg, still, that's the eye muscle. And then you have the rump or outside right here. This can be cut into two now, two smaller roasts. The reason I leave the eye on typically is to make this side a little bit more even. Now we could cut this into stew meat. This would be very good for making, again, some Chinese sweet and sour pork or something like that. It makes really good meat for soup. You want to grind it up, make chili out of it, all kinds of things. So you have the outside or rump, the eye, the heel, the knuckle. We have, top round and knuckle, and then a little bit of sirloin section left over. And that is the leg of pork boned out at home for your viewing pleasure. Thank you.